The monkey trick. Mullah Nasruddin had 7 monkeys who were as intractable as simians can be. One morning Nasruddin told them, "I will give each of you 3 figs in the morning and 4 in the evening. That will feed you for the day and there is absolutely no more." The angry monkeys began screaming in protest. All right, Mullah told them. "I will give you 4 figs in the morning and 3 in the evening." The monkeys were quickly satisfied that they had forced their master to increase their rations despite his reluctance. Riding backwards. One day Mullah Nasruddin was riding his donkey backwards, sitting facing its tail. "Mullah Nasruddin," the people said, "you are sitting on your donkey backwards." "Oh no," he replied. "It's not that I am sitting on the donkey backwards, it's the donkey that's facing the wrong way." The benefits of poverty. At one point of time, Mullah Nasruddin's family was very poor. Once, Nasruddin's wife woke him up in the dead of night and whispered, "Nasruddin, wake up. There is a thief in the kitchen." "Shush, you silly woman." Nasruddin quietened her. "Let him search all over. Perhaps he may find something valuable and then we can seize it." Discovering the speed of sound. One day Mullah climbed up a minaret and shouted at the top of his lungs. Then he immediately rushed down and began running as fast as his legs would carry him. "What's happening? Why are you running so hard, Mullah?" asked a passer-by. "To see how far my voice carries," Nasruddin replied, rushing off into the distance. One day Mullah Nasruddin entered his favorite teahouse and said, "The moon is more useful than the sun." An old man asked, "Why?" Nasruddin replied, "We need the light more during the night than during the day." Looking for lost sleep. Mullah Nasruddin was walking down the street well past midnight. A soldier on guard duty asked, "What are you doing out on the street so late, Mullah?" "Nothing. My sleep has disappeared and I am looking for it," Nasruddin replied. Lending donkey. One day a neighbor called on Nasruddin. "I want to borrow your donkey." "I'm sorry," Nasruddin said, "but I lent it to the miller." The sound of a donkey braying came from behind Nasruddin's house. "But I can hear your donkey." "Shame on you," Nasruddin said indignantly. "You'd believe the word of a donkey rather than mine." The stupid question. It was a pleasant winter morning and Mullah Nasruddin was sitting on a rocking chair and enjoying some half-boiled eggs that were liberally sprinkled with rock salt and pepper. A man happened to pass by and wondered why Mullah was sitting in a rocking chair out in the open and eating his meal. Walking over, he inquired, "Oh Mullah, why are you sitting out in the open on a rocking chair and eating boiled eggs?" Mullah looked him up and down scornfully and queried, "What would you rather have me doing? Sit on the boiled eggs and eat the rocking chair?" The price of a nobleman. In the company of a nobleman, Nasruddin visited the public bath. Once there, the nobleman jokingly asked Nasruddin, "If I were a slave, what would be a reasonable price for me?" Responded Nasruddin, "Only 50 dinars. The nobleman angrily told him, "Why, my bathing cloth costs 50 dinars. Nasruddin retorted, "Oh, that's exactly what I told you, the price of your bathing cloth. Because a nobleman has no value." Helping through understanding others. One day Nasruddin saw a crowd gathered around a pond, watching a priest flailing in the water and calling for help. Of course some people were attempting to rescue, reaching towards the drowning priest and saying, "Give me your hand." The priest kept wrestling with the water and shouting for help. Finally Nasruddin stepped forward. "Let me handle this." He stretched out his hand toward the priest and shouted, "Take my hand." The priest grabbed Nasruddin's hand so quickly that he nearly fell in. Soon the priest was extracted from the pond, and someone asked Nasruddin what just happened. "It is very simple," he replied. "I know this miser never gave anything to anyone. Instead of saying, 'Give me your hand,' I said, "Take my hand," and sure enough he took it. Age. How old are you, Mullah? 40. But you said that 2 years ago when I asked. That's right. I always stand by my word. Gift. Once, someone requested of Mullah Nasruddin, "Give me your ring as a memento, so that whenever I look at it I will remember you." The Mullah replied, "You cannot have the ring. But whenever you want to remember me, just look at your finger and remember that I did not give you the ring." One day Mullah Nasruddin entered his favorite tea house and said, "The moon is more useful than the sun." An old man asked, "Why?" Nasruddin replied, "We need the light more during the night than during the day." Teaching. One day Nasruddin repaired tiles on the roof of his house. While Nasruddin was working on the roof, a stranger knocked on the door. "What do you want?" Nasruddin shouted out. "Come down," replied the stranger, "so I can tell it." Nasruddin unwillingly and slowly climbed down the ladder. "Well," replied Nasruddin, "what was the important thing? Could you give a little money to this poor old man?" begged the stranger. Tired, Nasruddin started to climb up the ladder and said, "Follow me up to the roof." When both Nasruddin and the beggar were up on the roof, Nasruddin said, "The answer is no." Difference between old and youth. At a gathering where Mullah Nasruddin was present, people were discussing the merits of youth and old age. They had all agreed that a man's strength decreases as years go by, but Mullah Nasruddin dissented. He said, "In my old age I have the same strength as I had in the prime of my youth." "How do you mean, Mullah Nasruddin?" asked a man. "In my courtyard," explained Mullah Nasruddin, "there is a massive stone. In my youth I used to try and lift it and never succeeded. Neither can I lift it now." Sound from clothes. Nasruddin's wife heard a loud noise in the next room. She went to inspect it, and saw her husband sitting on the floor. "What was that?" she cried. "It was just my clothes," replied Nasruddin. "They fell down." "But how could your clothes make such a loud noise?" she asked. A nosy neighbor. Nasruddin was inspecting a house he wanted to buy. The home's next door neighbor noticed, walked over, and began telling him how great of a house it was. When he finished talking, Nasruddin remarked, "Well, what you're saying might be true, but there is one drawback to living here that you neglected to tell me about." "What's that?" a nosy neighbor. "Everything is right." Judge Nasruddin was listening to a case. After hearing the plaintiff present his side, Nasruddin remarked, "You're right." After the defendant had presented his case, Nasruddin again remarked, "Yes, you're right." Nasruddin's wife had been listening to the case, and remarked, "That doesn't make any sense. How can both the defendant and plaintiff be right?" "Precisely." Nasruddin responded. "You're right, too." Writing letter. An illiterate man asked Nasruddin to write a letter for him. Nasruddin, however, refused, saying, "Unfortunately, I can't do it right. Now my foot hurts too much." "Your foot?" the man said. "What does that have to do with writing a letter?" "Well," explained Nasruddin, "since nobody else can read my handwriting, I have to go wherever the letter goes so that I can read it to the recipient." Drying flour on clothesline. Neighbor. Nasruddin, "Can I borrow your clothesline?" Nasruddin, "I need it right now. I'm drying flour on it." "What? Whoever heard of someone hanging flour on a clothesline? You'll hear such things from those who don't want to lend." Building bathhouse. One day, Nasruddin sang in a bathhouse, and was very pleased with the sound of it. The tile walls amplified his voice, and sounded almost good to his ears. Later that day, Nasruddin went to the village center with his wife, and while she shopped he began singing. The people looked at him in wonder. And finally Nasruddin's wife asked him, "What are you doing? Your voice is no good. Just build a bathhouse here, and then you'll find out how great my voice is." Being as a poor. No, I'm ruined. I will become a beggar. What can I do to save myself from such misery and suffering? Is that all you're concerned about? Nasruddin replied, "Not a problem. Soon you won't have to worry about poorness." "You mean I will recover my fortune?" "Not exactly," said Nasruddin. "You'll get used to being poor." Laughing and crying. A man showed a compass to Nasruddin and asked him what it was. Nasruddin immediately began laughing. Then, seconds later, he began crying. The man noticed his bizarre behavior, and asked, "What is with the laughing and crying?" At first, Nasruddin responded, "I laughed because you didn't know what that simple object was, but then I realized that I didn't know what it was either, so I cried." What is rare? A visiting emperor was in Nasruddin's village, and visited the much mythologized Mullah's restaurant. After the emperor finished his quail egg omelette, an attendant asked Nasruddin how much to pay. 50 dinars, Nasruddin responded. Surprised to hear such a high figure, the emperor said, "Wow, that is very expensive. Are quail eggs rare here?" "No, not really," Nasruddin replied. "A visit from the emperor is what is rare." A liter of cow's milk. Nasruddin brought a small container to the milkman and said, "Give me 1 liter of cow's milk." The milkman said, "A liter of cow's milk won't fit into your container." "Okay, give me 1 liter of goat's milk." Riddle. Once, Nasruddin was talking to the village cobbler who told the following riddle: "There is a person who is my father's son, but he is not my brother. Who is he?" After a while, Nasruddin gave up guessing. "Me," the cobbler replied. Greatly amused, Nasruddin found some friends and told them the riddle. "There is a person who is my father's son, but he is not my brother. Who is he?" After thinking for a while, they said, "Who? Believe it or not, he is the village's cobbler." 26. Accepting authority. Nasruddin was invited to the royal palace for dinner one night. During the meal, the king asked Nasruddin if he enjoyed the stew. "Yes," replied Nasruddin, "it was fantastic." "Really?" said the king. "I thought it was pretty bad." "Yes," said Nasruddin, "you're right, it was quite awful." "Wait a minute," remarked the king. "You just said it was fantastic a few seconds ago." "That's correct," explained Nasruddin, "but I live in and serve in the town of the king, not the stew." Giving joy. One day, Nasruddin was talking to a traveler. The man lamented, "I am rich, but I am also sad and miserable. I am now traveling in search of joy, but I have yet to find it." Nasruddin grabbed the rich man's handbag and ran. The man chased him, but Nasruddin was faster. He turned a corner, and while he was of the man's sight, Nasruddin put the bag in the middle of the road and hid himself behind a house. When he turned the corner, the rich man saw the bag and said, "Praise Allah." The man then opened the bag, saw the gold, and victory danced right then and there in the middle of the street. Nasruddin watched, then said a prayer of praise to Allah, thanking him for the ability to give joy to the joyless. Advising to religious leader. A local religious leader invited Nasruddin over for dinner one night. Nasruddin arrived hungry, but the religious leader talked for hours and did not offer Nasruddin any food. Nasruddin finally interrupted the man. May I ask something? Surely, the religious leader answered. I was just wondering, do any of the people in your stories ever eat? Everything is true. One day a fool asked Nasruddin, is God true? Everything is true, replied Nasruddin. Even false things. Even false things are true, said Nasruddin. But how can that be? I don't know. I didn't do it, shrugged Nasruddin. 30. Stealing. Every Friday Nasruddin arrived at the market with at least one excellent donkey to sell. Since his price was unusually low for such fine animals, he sold them quickly, and the richest of his donkey-selling competitors wasn't happy about this. One day, the richest donkey seller asked Nasruddin, I cannot understand how you do it. My animals are inexpensive because my servants force farmers to give me fodder for free and I have slaves that look after my donkeys. With all that, I cannot match your prices. How do you do it? It's not hard, replied Nasruddin. You steal fodder and labor. I merely steal your donkeys.